Hi, I'm Dean Bushmiller with Expanding Security, and this is Cybersecurity Laws and Regulations. Now, if you're not seeing the full video, go to expandingsecurity.com, where you can also get quizzes, badges, and this mind map with all the dynamic links. So let's get started. When we look at cybersecurity laws and regulations, I want to start off with, we're really focusing in on business law here. But before we get to that, I have to have a legal disclaimer within what I'm doing right here. I am not an attorney. I do not play one on TV. And if I did, you should not be taking advice from me. Consult your legal team. And everything that I say here is not legally binding. It's not good legal advice. It's just a start about talking about cybersecurity. So consult your attorneys. Okay, now the goal with laws and regulations for your organization is to reduce litigation to a reasonable level. You're never going to eliminate litigation. It's going to happen within an organization. Now, if you want to reduce it to a reasonable level, you need to know the rules of winning. And the rules of winning are simple. Whoever has the best legal counsel and the deepest pockets wins. Now, unfortunately, that is the way it is when it comes to law. So what we want to do is we, as technology professionals, as cybersecurity professionals, we want to know what our part is in this and how not to screw it up for our legal team. That's our whole goal, is to just do the limited amount of damage that we possibly can, and the least amount of damage that we can. Okay. So now in all of this, you do a gap analysis for law, regulations, and all those things. And so you start off with what you say you do. That's your written policy. And then what you do. Those are the actual implementations that you put in place, the controls that you put in place. Now, you compare those two, and they're not going to be perfect. It's not going to be like a one-to-one correspondence where they all line up perfectly, and it really shouldn't. But there's going to be a gap there, and that's okay. Maybe. Now, if that gap is wide enough, that would be called negligence. I said I was going to give you $1 million and I gave you no money whatsoever. I promised you $1 million and I gave you nothing. Well, that's negligence on my part. Now, if that gap causes harm, you gave me a diamond worth $1 million and I didn't give you $1 million, I've caused you harm at that point. So that's when we kick into litigation at that point. If that negligence is significant, we want to, in most business cases, reclaim our monies or reclaim our property. And that's really what we want to focus in on for most of what we're talking about here. When we look at laws and regulations, they really are the well-defined rules of what must be done. Sometimes you could say, well, this is other institutions telling us what we did wrong. That's, regulators in there. That's not so bad. Laws, you did something wrong, got a problem there. Sometimes it's guidance on how to do it right. And then what are the consequences if you don't do it correctly? When we look at our data considerations, we have to consider the concept of sovereignty, ownership, classification, and retention, which I'll go over in deep detail in later sections. There's this issue of jurisdiction. Okay, now we can't treat the internet as if it were physical space, and that's really one of the big problems that we run into with jurisdictions. Now, where you sit, the laws of that nation may have extraterritorial impact on people. Okay, so that's extending the jurisdiction beyond the territorial limits of that nation. Somebody can reach in and do that. That actually happened with somebody called Kim.com. He was a German and Finnish citizen. He owned this thing called Mega Upload or Mega Download. I can't remember which one it was, where he had pirated movies. Those pirated movies were much to the ire of Hollywood, and Hollywood came and said to the U.S. federal government, Go get that guy and bring him back here so we can prosecute him. And the U.S. federal government went to New Zealand and said, we want that guy. Wait a minute. He's not even a citizen of New Zealand. Okay. But they got him. Eventually. It took until 2024 to get him, but they got him. We also have to look at the conflict of law. Okay, so we're going to have laws at the state or the nation level, and that's where the user resides, or it could be where the server hosting the transactions is located, or the person or business with whom the transaction takes place. And that causes us some problems when we're working with international customers or we have a very large organization. Now, here's the thing is, attackers take advantage of this in a lot of cases. They'll look at the law structures between different countries. They'll look at the extradition of evidence or people and see how they don't work between these two countries. And they'll say, okay, well, we're going to incorporate here. We're going to host our data servers there. And we're going to have our transaction mules in that country over there. That also allows them to take advantage of national conflict. So it might be two different countries have a different set of beliefs, or they have an intellectual property disagreement on what they define as intellectual property. And in all these cases, the attackers play the laws against us. It's not our job to know that they play those laws against us. It's our job to defend our organization. It's our job to follow our laws and make sure that we're doing it correctly. And we'll leave the international investigations of figuring out where these advanced persistent threats are and prosecuting them to those lofty agencies. Because remember, we're businesses here, okay? Now, the example that I give you right here to start off with is very near and dear to my heart at this point, which is artificial intelligence. I am not a big fan of artificial intelligence. I use it as necessary, but it's got some problems. Now, in artificial intelligence, if you actually look at the study that was just done, this is the Global State Responsibility Report from 2024. I've left the sources in my links. And they asked these questions. And so now this is the strongly agree section, okay? And then this is the agree section. So these two combined together are some form of agreement, which you can see that's over 85%. Now, the first question, it says, if we zoom in there, let's go ahead and zoom in there a little bit. It says, companies that develop foundational models will be responsible for the mitigation of all associated risk rather than organizations using these models or systems. If you are in the AI business, you work for the latest and greatest AI business, the laws or the people that are going to be making laws, 80% of the people out there say you are responsible. Be careful about that. Realize you're going to have to follow these new laws that are coming up. The next one down here is, I believe that generative AI presents enough of a threat that globally agreed generative AI governance is required. And we don't have international laws at this point, but we have a lot of international agreements. I'll give you some examples of those later on. And what this means is that there is going to be a unifying structure for AI for governance that's out there. Now, the EU has already started to do things, and the United States has already started to do things, and they are at odds with each other at this point. But there's going to have to be some sort of unifying law system out there for dealing with AI. So just know it's coming. So now my question to you is, how will you deal with the multiple conflicting requirements of your organization, the laws that you are going to inherit, the tools that you're going to put in place, the controls that you're going to put in place, and how will you protect your organization, not from a legal standpoint, but from a cybersecurity standpoint? So I hope you'll join me for the entire presentation.